representing my own company, which is Landward Research Limited, which is a consultancy company. We do work that looks at measuring capacity normally in the historic environment, finding out how many people work in the sector. We look at building capacity, which is doing things like, oh, you insist on the microphone. Sorry, thank you, Vangelis. Building capacity, which is about doing things like what I'm going to talk about here, about things like developing and delivering e-learning, and this project is very specifically about that. And we do monitoring and evaluation. We also design projects. We especially work at designing projects to get European Commission funding. And so we are a UK and England registered company which owns separate companies in Scotland and in the United States. And through a complicated quirk, I live in Nepal. I live in Kathmandu. And so back with reference to Colonel Bogdanos's presentation earlier, I actually do have a diplomatic passport, but I've never used it to try to escape from Waldorf Astoria Hotel. Anyway, this project, this ANHER e-archaeology, this is a project that is about developing and delivering e-learning for professionals working in natural and cultural heritage. Thinking about the project rationale, the reason why we recognize that professionals working in natural and cultural heritage are different and why they need this kind of training goes back to everything Professor Kenneth Aitchison was saying yesterday about nature and culture, and in Western ontologies, these being seen as separate ways of understanding the world. People working in cultural heritage don't always understand what people working in natural heritage do, and vice versa. So this is a project about helping them understand each other better. It's not about teaching archaeologists to be botanists. It's not about teaching foresters to be archaeologists. But it's about developing useful e-learning that crosses over that theoretical, it's not even a theoretical divide, but that occupational divide. So the project is funded by the European Commission through the Erasmus Plus Fund. It is coordinated by the Uniwersytet im Adama Mickiewicza in Poznan, in Poland, with 5 other partners from different parts of Europe there. Some of us have worked on things like this before. We have, and the University of Amsterdam and EOSGADI in the Basque Country have all worked in projects like this before. Some of our other partners have not. It's new to them. So it's an interesting development of bringing in different ideas, different backgrounds. The concept of, I've gone the wrong way. Okay, back to the overall concept. The concept is about building what we're calling a content repository, a repository of e-learning materials that can then be accessed and used for professional development. This is actually the 4th project in a series. As I say, some of us have worked together previously. 4th project doing things like this, mostly about cultural heritage, but one project was about archaeology and civil engineering. Again, that was trying to get engineers to understand what archaeologists wanted out of holes in the ground, and vice versa. So the idea is that here we will have a project that will produce things that professional educators can use to pull out materials that can be then used to deliver training, and that individual practitioners or even students can use to self-guide their own learning, to be able to, and that our role on the project, as well as writing the materials, is then facilitating that learning by uploading it, by tagging it, by making it interpretable. Okay. Apologies for putting up so many words in PowerPoint. It's a graphics program, but these are the modules that we are working on in the current project. As I said, this is the 4th in a series. So every project we've built maybe 10 or 12 modules, and here they are for this specific project. As you see, it's a lot of it is actually based quite overtly on the European Landscape Convention and what European Landscape Convention says about the values that should be ascribed and used in landscape as a concept. Again, I refer you back to yesterday's paper by Professor Kenneth Aitchison again to learn all of the theoretical background that we're talking about there. There are also the two modules at the bottom of the list there are not modules for the practitioners. Those are modules for educators to learn about how to use this system that we're building. Because at the moment, the system, I'll come on to this a little bit more, but the system will be essentially used by the 6 partners to deliver learning. The idea is in the future that that can be opened up to other participants to provide e-learning materials that can be facilitated through here, and that they can also use it to build their own courses from the materials that are being put up. Thinking about what we're doing, about this thing called e-learning. E-learning is not just having a website with something interesting on it. E-learning is about managing the opportunities to learn. Very specifically, to me, it has to be managed in some way through a learning management system. You have to be able to track what you're learning, and the stuff that we're creating, it's important that it is going to be self-contained, but it links into other materials. It is not just text, it is images, it is video, it is links to external and internal resources. It can be used by an individual looking at their own screen. It can be used with a tutor. It can be used as blended learning. It can be the background information to then having someone stand up in front of a class to teach. Importantly, it has to be adaptable, and the material that we create has to be reusable. It's not just single-use material that can only be used in one particular way. Okay, unreadable, but this is thinking about what e-learning courses are and how they are created. The important thing for us is that the way they have been constructed is using SCORM standards. SCORM stands for, quick reference, Shareable Content Object Reference Material. It is a standard way of building e-learning materials that allows you to essentially code them up in a relatively straightforward way that any of the popular either open source or paid for learning management systems can then access. Then if you've got an LMS, whether it's Moodle or Blackboard or separately developed kind of LMS, then you can upload the materials, SCORM materials, and then the learners can, at the other end, download and use. Yeah, quickly, it's text and videos and pictures. It's thinking about the way that we build the courses. All this content is granular. It comes down to it's a standard SCO, a single shareable content object. It can be something like, let's say, a few screens of information that link together to build a case study, but then it can be broken down further than that. It can be the further reading that goes with that case study. It can be the bibliography. And so part of what we do in building this, as well as creating those learning materials, we're also always interpreting and tagging and describing them. We put tags on them so that someone can search for a particular topic that they want to be learning about, describing them in terms of things like the level, the difficulty, the complexity. Now, this particular example that you can't read that I put up is actually from a module, a case study that I wrote a few years ago, which is about the looting of the Baghdad Museum as a case study in cultural heritage management. Colonel Bogdanos couldn't stay for the afternoon, but oh well. We have built up over these 4 projects, well the 4th is still ongoing, but we have now built up an extensive library in the content repository of materials, and these are not just in English, these are in all the different partner languages that we've gone along. So now it's in Polish and Spanish and Italian and Portuguese not in Dutch, because the national language of the Netherlands is, of course, English. And in previous projects, we've had things in Turkish and Norwegian. And I think we've now reached, I see 6,800 entries that are in there, of breaking it down to smallest level in different languages. Then the idea is that when you access this content repository and you search for it, and you search for whatever, cultural heritage management or engineering, and it gives the list of, not even of whole modules, but of short, small pieces of standard SCOs, individual units, then you can select from that, as from a menu, select items, and then combine and download them so that they then form the SCORM package that your learning management system can use to deliver learning to your individual learners or students. The way that we want it to look at the end of this project, part of what we're building is this heritage educational portal that's all going to look very, very beautiful. This is nice stuff that our learning technologists in Poznan have been building, while the rest of us have been being the subject matter experts to provide the other information materials. And part of our goal is this concept of that the partners will all become centers of integrated heritage teaching excellence, that we will all be different routes to access this material. Now, 6 years ago, I thought that there was a genuine business model in trying to set up delivering e-learning and getting people to pay for it, even if that's done through revenue sharing websites. 6 years ago, I believed that. By 5.5 years ago, I no longer believed that was a viable business model. My company just couldn't do that. The kind of materials that are out there that are available for free mean that people would be reluctant to even pay token amounts to get some of these things. My company's partners in these projects, many of them will be universities, and they will use this materials within their taught courses. That is their business model. The fact that some people believe university education is free, no it isn't, but that this is their business model for delivery. Our business model now is to get paid to develop things and then to actually give away the course material for free at the end of the rainbow. Overall, so conclusions. For this specific project, we think the conclusions are that there's a recognized need for cultural and natural heritage professionals to be able to work more closely together and to understand each other better, that we think distance learning, vocational education training is the way to achieve this. We think that our content repository, as the database of all the learning materials, is the way to store and to sustainably store those learning materials, and that we then believe the heritage education portal and perhaps the partners as centers of integrated heritage teaching excellence will be the delivery model. We would love to be a heritage Coursera. I don't think we quite are. So that's who's written it, that's who's funded it, that's where you can see this paper again. Thank you very much.